Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we're surprised to discover that we're 3 times the size we're supposed to be. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including some more changes to what's happening at E3. And then on Thursday, we are going to be talking about Disney games that we'd like to see Nintendo make. It's a long walk, but we'll get you there. Don't worry. In the meantime, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing so good.
Yeah.
So happy to be here with you, Patrick.
Yes, I'm happy to. Has it been longer since last Monday than usual?
It felt that way.
It did.
Yes.
It did, and it does.
I think we just like hanging out with each other.
I think you're right.
Hey, congratulations on the Transformer comic.
Thank you.
I loved it.
Thank you.
You can still get the Valentine's Day special. It is in comic book stores now.
Yes, and if it is unavailable in your comic book store, usually they can order it.
For sure.
And you can also get it on the IDW website or on Comixology. It is imminently gettable. It is called, and I realize this is an important part of the equation that I should have spelled out earlier, it is called the Transformers Valentine's Day Special. It doesn't have an issue number. In place of an issue number, there's a heart.
Adorable.
Adorable. A little bit hard to explain to my mother. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel like if you walk into any comic book store, which I
Yes.
understand for your mother, probably a long walk in and of itself.
She sent my uncle. Then he called her and was like, how do I find this thing? And then she called me. And this was at like 10 o'clock in the morning in Florida, which means it was 7 o'clock here.
But I feel like if you just say the new Transformers.
Transformers 17 also came out on Wednesday. So.
Oh, gotcha. Well, here's another way that
Yes.
you can get a copy of Transformers. Because I went to a comic book store and I wiped them out. I bought all the copies available.
Right.
And because we've already
And
had
then
people...
you burned the rest of their inventory, right?
And then I ordered 10 more issues of your comic that will be coming in about 2 weeks. Now, we've already had some people request signed copies. And by request, I mean they went through the process.
Right.
To get a signed copy. And that
Which
process is
yes.
leave us a 5-star review on the platform of your choice where you
Yes.
get your podcast. And then email and tell us, and we'll send you a signed copy.
Yeah.
In about 2 weeks.
And yeah, well, we'll send it in about 2 weeks. It'll be a little bit of a process, but you'll get it and you'll love it.
And here's something, and I think we have like a handful of copies still left to give out, so it's not too late. And here's another thing, is that I do think it's fair that if you had previously left us a 5-star review,
yes,
and you want a signed copy, I'm happy to send it to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Generous. Mark, very generous.
I want this comic, your comic,
Thank
in
you.
people's hands.
I also want that.
And to our listeners, even better.
Yes, correct.
Here's another thing, is that we're at 99 reviews on the American Apple Podcast Store. So we just need one more to get us over the 100 hump.
But also don't be fooled, because the second we cross that hundo hump, we're going to want 200, right?
We are eminently greedy.
Yes. So please leave us a review, screenshot it, email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com, and we will send you a signed copy of this thing until we run out.
Yes.
And here's one more thing you can do with that email address. You need to get on the list so that you can borrow my copy of Sonic Forces on the Nintendo Switch. Sonic Forces still out there in the wind. I don't know where it is. I assume it's coming back. And when it does, it's going to go out to the next person on the list. Get your name added to the list. Email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com with a mailing address so we have somewhere to send it. I send it there. It comes back. It doesn't cost you anything. It's the perfect borrowing program. We're a little bit out of order here because this is when we were talking about Transformers. I'm sorry to throw the brakes on and just be like confused about like what the format of the show is. Mark, a little bit of a debug from last week. in the news, I wrote up a piece in the news identifying Persona 5 Scramble as with the subtitle "The Phantom Thieves," which is a group within the Persona 5 universe. The game is actually called the Phantom Strikers. So that's my bad. And I'm sorry that I made you say the wrong name. And I think you did pause right before saying the wrong name.
I think that's giving me a lot of credit because
Yes.
I have no memory of this. Also, it's a nice little tease because we're going to be talking a lot about Persona 5 a little bit later.
We certainly are. Also got an email from Corbin. Hey, Corbin, thank you for writing into us, sort of with a response to one of the things we were saying about Bayonetta last week on our Valentine's Day episode. The sort of gist of it is we were determining who our perfect Nintendo Valentines would be. And when we pulled Bayonetta out of the bowl to discuss her, we didn't really know what to do with her.
Yeah.
Bayonetta's a lot. And so we were just like, well, we're going to put her sort of off in the corner and, deal with it in a separate piece. And so Corbin emailed to sort of explain what he perceives to be like the sort of argument for Bayonetta as like an active agent of her own sexuality. But then he also added this, and I just wanted to read a little bit from his email here. He says, now my personal interpretation, which kind of overlaps with the accepted one, is that Bayonetta is drag. Drag is about performance of what society classifies as gender, often exaggerated in order to send it up and put a magnifying glass to it, show how ridiculous expectations of femininity or masculinity can be. I believe Bayonetta is a digital drag performance that sends up what it is to be feminine in a video game. I came to this conclusion one night when I played through the first level of Bayonetta 2, and then coincidentally immediately watched an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race, and the parallels were striking.
Oh, that's really interesting.
It's certainly an interesting take. I guess without knowing like the identities of the people who work on the character, I don't know how much I also like drag always kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way. Performative gender of a gender that you can't actually like claim as your own feels a little icky to me. I don't want to like rob anyone of it, and I know it's empowering for a lot of people, so like I don't. It just doesn't jive for me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a really like interesting perspective and not one that I had considered.
Yeah, completely.
And then also one last thing, shout out to James for shouting us out on n64josh.com. Nice little write-up.
Yeah, it was really nice.
All right, Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week.
All right, so I picked up Rayman Legends.
Hey!
For like the definitive edition for Nintendo Switch. I think that's what it's called.
Was there like some kind of sale? Or did you
There was, yeah.
Yes.
So like Capcom and Ubisoft are having like a pretty big sale right now.
Cool.
And so it was down to I think $10 and I had enough gold coins to cover it.
Oh,
and
I
had
love
heard
it when
good
you can buy
things.
something with gold coins.
Friend of the show, June, had been playing it and he recommended it the last time it was on sale. And so when I saw that it was, I went for it. So I had played the demo for this way back when it was originally released on Switch.
Yeah.
And I remember not really loving it, but now that I've like gotten a little bit more into it, it's a lot of fun. It's like the difficulty ramps up really quickly.
Great.
The one thing that I don't dislike about it, but is not my favorite, is the character design is a lot of the comedically grotesque stuff that I feel like is very European.
It does have a European, like an animated European sensibility for sure.
Where it's just like there's this one. Look, I don't know Rayman very well. This is the first Rayman game I've ever played.
Yeah.
And so I don't know the world or the character very well. I think it's a teensy, but for some reason it's like a sidekick that shows up occasionally in levels, and you can get him to do things like cut rope and like tickle people so you can attack them, like all that kind of stuff.
Sure. This is originally the thing that was like being controlled by the gamepad player on the Wii U.
Oh, okay.
Because they would just touch the things on the screen and
that
them
makes
happen.
a ton of sense. Well, okay, so that thing is like a bug or something, and it's really gross looking. And that's the point. The point is for it to be like grotesque and weird, but I don't get it.
Look, we're Disney babies. We just want everything to be cute.
Yeah.
That's all we want.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you on that. I've always found the art style of Rayman and the rabbits to be a little like it just like it crosses into an aesthetic that I just don't really share.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say that like I'm down on all like ugly animated stuff. Like I like a Ren and Stimpy. Like there's something about that I don't know if it even like goes beyond the like casually ugly to the like upsettingly ugly where I actually like it. But yeah, the Rayman is just in a part of the spectrum that I can't really
right.
dig.
I mean, they're definitely not one-to-ones, but I can't play this game without thinking of like the Mucinex like booger monster thing.
Yep. I believe they're phlegm. They live inside your lungs
right.
or something.
Like the mucus monster. But otherwise, I am really enjoying it. And initially, I was like, this game is super easy. And then you get like 4 levels in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this game is way too hard.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun. I am enjoying, and it seems like there is a ton of content
yes.
in this like definitive edition. So, or deluxe edition, I can't remember what it's called, but for $10, totally worth it.
Look, we can't memorize the full names of all video games like Dragon Quest XI-S, Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition for the Nintendo
My
Switch.
brain just doesn't have the space. Also, this game is called Rayman Legends, and the other one was Rayman Origins. It's like, stop naming video games these two things.
Right. It's too hard to remember. These words don't mean anything, especially when Rayman Origins isn't like the first one ever.
No, is it chronologically in like the...
Oh, who cares? Who cares? How are you ever going to know?
I don't even know where Rayman came from.
Well, maybe if you'd played Origins,
yeah, great
you would
point.
find out.
It's a really insightful point. Also, I've been playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, just kind of making my way, trying to get 3 stars in each cup
in the world today.
Each like CC
takes everything you got.
Also, I've been playing. That's kind of like segued me into playing the online multiplayer again. Multiplayer battle online. I love it. I love
you're doing
so
the
much.
battles online?
Yeah.
Every now and then, Sarah and I will jump into the multiplayer. So the two of us on our Switch, just racing against randos.
The races I'm always really bad at. Like I always do. I always do really poorly. But the battles I can like hang with the best. So and I like that it's different since I'm doing the cups right now.
Yeah,
I'm happy to do
to
like
break it up a little bit. I've also been playing a little bit of some older games. Of course, because nothing has come out on the Switch in the last however long. I picked,
and yet we continue to do a new release segment,
and we will never stop doing a new release segment. We have very few like regular segments on the show, and we will always do all of them. Super Mario Maker 2, which is a game I had not gone back to since the DLC dropped a little bit ago.
The one that included like the Zelda power-up?
And specifically included the Zelda power-up, but also the Ninja races.
Oh, right.
Which there are only 4 Nintendo-made levels for it out right now. And I seem to remember or like being under the impression that there were going to be a lot of levels or like new ones coming out regularly.
That's what I thought too.
It seems like there are just 4.
Interesting.
And like, playing through them is they're good, fun levels. But trying to sort of like, maximize your efficiency getting through them has like a limited return on like, fun. And then they also have like these little like areas of time, these little like slivers that like they want you to finish the level in, and they're always like really fast because the sort of bell curve is towards finishing it as fast as possible. And like it can be really tough to get into like even the second tier like good time just because it's like, well, how do everyone else that has like really pounded this out has gotten a really good time on it. And so I don't know, I have found it to be like fun at first and then frustrating to try to like master because I just like hit against the ceiling where I'm just like, I can't do this any faster. And I know someone is doing it faster somehow, but I'm not one of those people. So I feel like it, kind of going back to what we had been saying about Mario Maker 2 from the beginning or even within the first couple months after its release, that like they're rolling out new stuff for it, but like the support it's not like full-throated support.
Yeah, the potential of Super Mario Maker 2 feels frustrated for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I don't know why that is. I also went in to just like try and play some levels. And one of the things that happened to the original Mario Maker after about a year of being on the market is that it just sort of flooded with auto run levels and levels that are just impossibly difficult or impossibly easy. And that's sort of happening to Super Mario Maker 2 right now as well. There are ways around it by like using the search tools and then like kind of eyeing the levels as you're going through them. But man, it would really be nice if there was just like a playlist of like good levels, and I'm sure individual websites have this and like people are curating it outside of the ecosystem of Super Mario Maker 2. But man, I wish there was a way to do that within the game.
Well, that's kind of what I was hoping that like the official makers that like Nintendo has, right? They have one for the US, one for Europe, one for Japan. I think that's the 3 that they have. But like that's kind of the role that I was hoping they were taking. Like even if they're not going to create a bunch of levels, like even if they acted as like curators for their region and we're just being like, here are like ones that we're spotlighting or highlighting,
and
it's constantly
possible
like
that
updating.
It's possible that they are doing that just by like liking the courses, and then you could go to them and see what courses they've liked. But I would really like that to be more easily accessible. That you're prompted when you start to like check in on like a new playlist of levels or whatever. And it's always going to be an issue, but I just wish that they worked out discoverability on that in some way.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it seems lacking at the moment. I also picked Pocket Rumble back up. Remember Pocket Rumble?
I do remember Pocket Rumble.
Pocket Rumble, is for those who don't remember, is a Neo Geo Pocket-esque fighting game that I was excited about for like a year and a half before this game's launch, because it was shown in the original indie Nintendo Direct for the Switch.
And was supposed to be one of like the earlier releases for it within like the first 8 weeks or something.
It was supposed to be out in March 2017, and then it came out like a year and a half later. And I played a couple fights and was like, oh, I don't really like this. But now that I've spent a little bit more time with it, one of the things that bummed me out about the game is that it had an incredibly limited roster, 8 characters only, and they all felt like hard for me to wrap my head around, and it's because they all play completely differently. So like I went back into it with like the Pocket Rumble wiki open in front of me, which is clearly run and edited by the people who made the game, because it has every time the characters have been updated, it has like every note about their.
That's kind of awesome.
So like it's rad, and I'm glad that they're using like the wiki format for that, because it's perfect.
Yeah.
And all the character special move inputs are really simple, but all the characters have like sort of different subsystems about them to use their like special meter, and it's all super unique. And having the wiki in front of me while playing it was actually something that I really got into it. And so now when I need to like put on a fighting game for a little bit and like just get some of that out, my game of choice has been Pocket Rumble.
That's awesome.
Let me tell you this. No one is playing this game online right now. I would love to have some people to play Pocket Rumble with. So if anyone's playing Pocket Rumble, shoot us an email, Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com, or tweet at us or at me, at Patrick_Ellers, and let's get some Pocket Rumbles going. All right, so that's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
Tomorrow, Wednesday, February 19th, the SNES and NES Switch Online are getting new games.
New games!
That's right. So for the SNES Online, we're getting Poppin' Twinbee and Smash Tennis.
All right, fine.
And then for the NES, Shadow of the Ninja and Eliminator Boat Duel.
Can I tell you that I've never heard of Eliminator Boat Duel?
No idea.
No idea.
No, what does that even mean? Is it a boat duel that leads to elimination?
Or
is it an Eliminator boat a type of boat?
Oh, that's a great question. Or is it like an Eliminator duel that takes place on a boat? Like, is an Eliminator like some kind of Highlander or like a Terminator?
That sounds plausible.
Because Eliminator that's a synonym for a Terminator,
yeah,
right?
And if you were like, if it was me and I was developing a game in like the 80s,
Yep.
maybe early 90s,
Yes.
and I didn't have the Terminator license, I might think up an Eliminator.
Right. Or if you were like close to getting the Terminator license and then you were like, I don't want to work with Jim Cameron. Like, I get it.
Oh, I get it too.
Because he would want to be involved. I was very excited when I saw Shadow of the Ninja because I have mentioned this on Twitter, so forgive me for repeating myself. I thought it was Wrath of the Black Manta, which is a ninja game where like you learn ninja. It's like a side-scrolling, like kind of beat 'em up sort of thing, but you learn ninja powers as you go that are really cool and really fun. And this is not that game. And I really wanted to play Wrath of the Black Manta.
Yeah,
this is not it.
These are real like. Huh.
They're head scratchers, man.
Yeah. I will say that I feel the people who responded to this Twitter announcement with just like, where's Donkey Kong? We want Donkey Kong Country.
Right.
Give us Donkey Kong. Like, I feel that. Maybe don't like take it out on the Nintendo Twitter. But I am in that boat where I'm like, like checking my watch, like, where is Donkey Kong?
We will talk about this sort of thing in just a little bit, but so we'll maybe drill into it more. But like, what do you do when you have those? Because like, the last thing you want to do is be like another one of those jerks on Twitter being like, "You're not giving me what I want." But like, you do kind of want to, like, have a voice in a conversation of being like, here are my expectations. Here's what's not being met, and how do you not turn yourself into a national Dexter? Like how do?
I think you're just not a jerk about it.
Probably.
I mean, I think you're just not mean or like yelling at it.
Right. But I mean, this is probably right. It's probably correct.
On Thursday, February 20th, Double Dragon and the Kunio-kun Retro Brawler bundle that we talked about in last week's news episode.
Which, remember, includes 11 games that have never been released in the United States.
With really fun titles.
Yep.
That is being released, as well as Sega Age's Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Very cool.
And Sega Age's Puyo Puyo 2.
Very, very cool.
And that's pretty much it on the list of things that I wanted to talk about. But...
yes.
Speaking of Sonic, there is a huge Sonic the Hedgehog sale on various Nintendo eShops right now through February 28th.
Guess what? There was a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and people didn't hate it. Have you seen the Sonic movie yet?
No, I haven't seen the Sonic movie yet.
Neither have I.
I assumed if we were going to see it, we would see it together.
Yes, probably. I don't think I want to, but
I don't really want to either. And it feels Nintendo adjacent enough that we can get away without seeing it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. If maybe there'll be a horrible negative backlash to this, and we need to see Sonic the Hedgehog. But there is a Sonic sale on all three main Nintendo platforms right now. And so we just wanted to highlight a couple. The original Sega Ages Sonic the Hedgehog is available for $4. It's normally $8. Sonic Forces, which you can either borrow from us or normally spend $20 on, is $10. Sonic Mania is $10. It's a great price for that game. And then Sonic Team Racing is only $20. Is normally $40. And then also on the 3DS, both of the Sonic the Hedgehog like 3D remakes are $3, and they normally go for $7.
I forgot they did that in the same vein as like the Nintendo Virtual Console like 3D remakes.
Yes,
interesting.
Yes. They're not as good as the as like the Kid Icarus one, for example, but probably better than the Urban Champion one. So, what do I know? Maybe worse than Excite Bike? I don't know, Mark.
Also, like I had mentioned when I talked about Rayman Legends, Ubisoft and Capcom also have a sale going on. I don't know if it goes through the 28th, but there's lots of good deals out there on the eShop right now.
Yeah, so and on check all platforms, not just Switch, 3DS and Wii U are also getting. And remember, for our correction last week, you can buy stuff with your credit card on these platforms as long as you're not in Europe. All right, so those are the new releases. Let's get into our next segment. Now it's time for a regular segment on the show. It's time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or a group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, today you wanted to talk about Valentine's Day heart candies?
Yeah, so you know those like sweetheart candies?
Yeah.
These either they're pastel, they have messages printed on them.
Right. They taste like chalk.
They taste like chalk.
Sweet chalk.
Yes.
Right.
Sweet chalk. So first I was like, oh, it'd be fun for us to rank the messages on there as like most desirable to least desirable. And then so I started looking for the messages that were in the candies this year. It turns out that the recent history of these sweetheart like hard candies is kind of interesting, so I'll just tell you what happened with them.
And I will interject with questions.
Okay, great. And I will do my best to answer any question. So basically,
yes,
they were made, which makes a ton of sense. Do you remember Necco wafers?
Yes.
Okay, so it was made by that same company who did Necco wafers, and they were, I think it was actually called Necco. It doesn't exist anymore. But they were like basically the same candy. And then in 2010, they were like, hey, we're reformulating like our candies. We're going to make them a little bit softer. They're going to have natural flavors, and so the colors changed as well. And the natural flavors were like, I guess they ended up being a little bit more sour because they weren't as artificial. Oh. So they were doing things like green apple and flavors like that. People apparently, this was in 2010, people apparently hated it. So in 2011...
Okay, but hold on. Just to throw the brakes on for a second. Was anyone ever eating a candy heart for the flavor of it?
Apparently.
No.
Apparently.
No.
Apparently. And I guess this was also, like, it was a change across their line. So it was like Necco wafer candies, which are we're super gross.
Right.
Not to speak ill of the dead, but we're super gross.
We can speak ill of dead companies. I think that's okay.
So, okay. So they reformulate the candies in 2010. People hate it. So the next year they're like, oops, our sales dropped significantly. So we're going to work our way back to like using the original formula.
Sweetheart's Classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then in 2018, they go out of business. Entirely.
So this is a very recent development is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So what have we done the last 2 years?
So here's the thing. In like 2019...
Just selling through the old stock?
Is
that what's happening?
No, so in 2019, a different company called Spangler bought the rights to these Sweethearts candies. And they like...
This is like the THQ Nordic of candy.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Exactly. So and that was at the end of 2018. And they didn't have enough time to what they wanted to do was move the equipment from Necco's factory because Necco went out of business. So they were going to like move its equipment, but they had like a whole bunch of obviously like logistics issues with that. So they didn't have enough time to spin it up between the fall of 2018 and 2019 for them to make Sweethearts candies.
Sure.
So 2019, apparently there were no Sweethearts candies.
Hold on. Really?
Yeah. So if you were, there were probably knockoffs or whatever.
Yeah,
but they
probably
were not like the official Sweethearts candies. And then this year, they finally got it up and running for 2020. But the printer that they used to put like the messages on there, the one that they tried to use didn't work anymore. So they got a replacement, and there were technical problems with the replacement. So they did have the candies with the original formula because they abandoned the natural flavor thing.
Sure. No one liked it, so why
bother?
bother?
There were no messages printed on it this year.
So isn't it also a trade secret how M&M gets the M printed on the M&M itself?
I don't know. It might be.
Like, I wonder if there is an engineering hurdle that needs to be overcome to effectively print on millions and millions of tiny candies in like a cost-effective way. Because you're selling each one for less than a penny each.
Well, the Time article I was reading about
probably not right. It's probably, what do you think it costs to buy an individual candy heart? 3 cents?
No, I would guess that like it is. They're probably maybe like 1 cent.
I mean,
manufacture.
not to manufacture. Like when you buy a bag, right? Like how much are you spending on that bag, and how many candies are in there? What is your price per candy as you're buying them?
Yeah, maybe 3 cents.
Maybe 3 cents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that? Yeah, that's probably right. You get like a box for $1.50 or something. I don't know how much do one of these. I don't know. Anyways, the long story. When I was reading this article in Time, they made it sound like it was one printer that was printing on all of the hearts, and then that one printer broke and their backup did not work, so there was no printing on hearts.
Wow, and then they don't have the institutional knowledge or relationship with the printer because this is a new company.
Right, and who knows how old the printer was before.
I guess we will never know. We were accompanied today by cellist Timotheus Petrin and pianist George Gianno Fu. All right, great. All right, let's get into the news, Mark.
We got some more Persona 5 news coming up, even though Persona 5, as far as we know, not coming to Switch anytime soon.
That's right.
At the Persona 5 Royal Press event, IGN's Tom Marks asked Atlas Communications manager Ari Advincula about the possibility of Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royal coming to Switch. Advincula's answer was supportive but non-committal. She said, quote, "I am a strong believer in never give up on hope."
Oh boy.
That
is a breadcrumb if ever there was one, right?
I mean, like, look, she admits, like, she did backpedal a little bit, saying that she's not exactly like a decision maker in this regard, but that she has been an internal advocate for supporting the game to Switch for a long time. And the one actual thing she said was, keep telling us what you want. So there you go. I don't know. This is one of those, I hate this kind of stuff where companies like, what do you want us to do? Like, obviously, you know what
the deal is.
Yeah.
And obviously there's something holding us up. Thank you. We appreciate that you want to play our game on more platforms, but it's just not what's happening right now.
Right.
But keep telling, like, it's a real thank you for your interest sort of response, right?
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it is the sort of thing where, like, the people who do make that decision, probably at Atlas in Japan, are, like, not interested in it for whatever reason. But if somebody from, like Atlas of America or whatever it's called, I actually don't know what the divisions of Atlas are called, right? But if they, like, can point to so much support for it, then maybe that'll, like, change somebody's mind. I don't know. I don't really know. Like we were talking about earlier, I don't really know how to make any of this actionable.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that she says, keep telling us what you want, that you want what you want, and keep telling us what you want. But yeah, it's also like how do you effectively do that in a way that sounds like someone voicing what they want and not like a petulant kid on Twitter,
right?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, I guess we can keep bringing it up on our shows and saying like, oh yeah, I guess that would be nice. I probably would play some Persona games if they came to Switch. But yeah, I mean, at this point, that seems like about all there is.
Yeah, I completely agree. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about a fan survey that Atlas had sent out in Japan, and they were asking people, what games do you want? Mm-hmm. Persona 5 and the other Persona games were on there. But another game that was listed was Catherine Full Body.
Yes.
And the South Korean Video Game Ratings Board has listed Catherine Full Body for release on Nintendo Switch. So maybe it is coming sooner rather than later.
And that's interesting, too, because, I mean, I don't know if any of this matters anymore, but, like, in my mind, Nintendo is always so much more of, like, a family-oriented brand. And of all the Atlas games, Catherine Full Body is the one that is most explicitly about like sex and relationships and like anxiety about sex and relationships. And if that is coming to Switch, then it feels like the floodgates for everything. Like this is almost a stronger indicator to me that we will see Persona games at some point than anything else that we've seen or read.
Yeah, I mean, the Switch definitely is in modern Nintendo hardware the system that is like getting all of these types of games.
Yeah,
right? We've
totally.
Seen, like the new like all the Bethesda stuff, like Wolfenstein, Doom Eternal. On like the eShop, we've seen a lot of like dating sims and that sort of thing. And obviously, that's a different animal than Catherine. But I don't. But yeah, I feel like those barriers are definitely
piece,
like
though, because like a lot of those, a lot of like the dating sims are like the sort of like Japanese visual novels that have a little bit more of like a relationship bent to them. All of that is tonally similar to what's happening in Catherine. So maybe that's just kind of feeding into that audience more than into an overall Atlas or Persona audience.
We also talked last week about how Atlas, on the 3DS, had a lot of support there with original titles, but also with remasters of old titles. And so it makes sense to me to see titles like Catherine Full Body on Switch because, it was a remaster that was on other platforms previously.
Yep.
And so if they're going to have more Switch support, it seems like a quote-unquote easier way to do that.
Right. I mean, and also the original Catherine was a PlayStation 3 game, so it's not exactly pushing the bounds of the hardware. And also, Catherine Full Body for me is a game that I very much wanted to play, but I didn't really want to get it on home console. If it comes to Switch, that's a day one purchase for me, I think.
Has Persona 4 Golden is it still a Vita exclusive? Do you know?
Vita exclusive.
Okay, so
yep.
I think that's probably like a hurdle for getting it onto Switch, right? Is because it doesn't exist in this HD PC form.
That's a great
point. They'd have
point.
to basically redevelop it.
Yeah, great point.
Also, at the same time that the South Korean Video Game Ratings Board listed Catherine Full Body, they also had a listing for the XCOM 2 collection. So maybe another third-party title that will be showing up fairly soon.
How many games are in an XCOM 2 collection?
So it's actually just like XCOM 2 and then all the DLC.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
I will confess that while I've been describing games as XCOM-like Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle or Codename Steam on the 3DS, I've never actually played an XCOM game. Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Good.
Hey, remember how we're still waiting for the free DLC for Katana Zero?
Mark, yes, I do.
Well, it turns out that the DLC is proving to be much bigger than the developer originally planned. According to the official ASCIIsoft Twitter account, the new content is 3 times the size they had originally spec'd, and while there's still no release date, it will still be free.
It's good to know that the thing that they said will be free is still going to be free. I love this from and seems to be a trend in indie game developers that they're like, yeah, we'll do some substantial DLC, and then they're like, oh, this is enormous. That's what Hollow Knight Silksong is. That's what the 3 different Shovel Knight campaigns are. That's what this is. It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. And I love Katana Zero, so I'm excited for this whenever it comes out. It's been so long since I played it. I think it was released in April or something, 2019.
That sounds right.
And so probably whenever the DLC was released, I'll just play through the whole thing again.
Yeah. Well, why not?
That sounds great.
And maybe I'll wait till the DLC comes out to just play the whole thing.
I think you would really like it. It's a lot of fun.
I mean, I did just play Celeste. Oh, that's something else I've been playing. I'm gonna just take us back real quick. I went back into the first level of Celeste and got all the strawberries and got the B-side and then beat the B-side.
Nice.
So I think I'm going to maybe once a week go into one of those levels and do my best to clear it out. The first one was doable. I don't know if any of the rest of them are going to be
I will be so
interested.
I didn't even attempt the later levels, so I'll be super interested to hear what the when you get to chapter 6 or whatever, what that's
hard.
like.
It gets so hard.
So there's been a lot of talk about what E3 is going to be like this year, and we still don't really know.
Right.
But the picture is becoming a little bit clearer. Was it last week that the ESA, which is the organization behind E3, kind of put out a press release or a letter to content creators and press, kind of being like, oops, our bad about last year, but we're, making changes. We're not going to keep your information actually on the site. I mean, that kind of stuff.
I think very specifically there wasn't an our bad in that message. I think it was we know your privacy is of the utmost importance to you, and we are taking that seriously. There was no, because last year a lot of attendees' information was available on the website. It wasn't even really a leak so much as just the information was there, and anyone who wanted to have email addresses and phone numbers of people who attended.
Yeah, home addresses for people.
So that was all out there and not a really good look for the ESA.
Yeah, and so I think it remains to be seen how that'll affect press coverage going forward.
Yeah.
But we also know that there are other changes coming that we don't really understand the scope of. So last week, the ESA put out a statement assuring fans that, or trying to assure fans that despite Sony not being there and Microsoft not being there, the show was still happening and that there would still be a bunch of big video game developers and publishers showing off their stuff at the show.
Right. And we had previously, like Nintendo, Doug Bowser had said that, like, yeah, E3 is an important place for us to interact with our fans and
right.
Like, put games in people's hands.
And, you know, with the, was it last year or 2 years ago that they opened up tickets to fans again?
Yeah, that was 2 years ago.
It does seem like they're trying to make it, because like last year when we went, it was this weird combination of like a fan convention and a business event, and neither one really made a ton of sense.
Yeah, and it's unclear what the industry or like what the people who are normally participating in these things actually want it to be.
Right.
Because Sony's statement this year about why they weren't attending almost made it sound like they didn't want to participate in E3 because it wasn't as fan focused as they wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Which is sort of, I feel like the consensus outlook is that it is becoming too fan focused, that like it's not a PAX, it is an industry event.
But I think it feels to me like that the ESA is trying to make it more like a PAX or something.
But I think it's still not there.
You're right.
And partially that's because PAX already exists, and like the companies that are going to activate for that sort of thing are already doing it.
Right, and like the function of a PAX is way different than a function of like what E3 was. And the ESA seems like a terrible organization to be trying to put on a fan convention.
Totally.
They're like a lobbyist organization, essentially.
Yes.
But so they put out a statement saying, quote, several leading video game companies have already committed to participate in E3 2020, including Xbox, although they are like not actually part of the show. They have their own space like right next to at LA Live next to the
right, the Microsoft Theater.
Nintendo, Ubisoft, Bethesda Softworks, Sega, Capcom, Square Enix, Take-Two Interactive, Bandai Namco, and Warner Brothers Games, amongst others. So basically trying to reassure people that it's still a big deal.
And like those are big names, right? And you know, like last year, Square Enix had a huge booth with both Final Fantasy VII Remake stuff and Avengers, like, you know, that they had like made the exterior of like the one of the helicarriers, and like Bandai Namco had a huge presence, and Capcom was mostly Monster Hunter, but like, you know, they do the sort of big the big ostentatious booths with giant figurines to get your picture taken in front of. So like, you know, I think that spectacle is still there.
For sure, yeah. So the ESA is trying to reassure people that it's still a big deal, that it still matters.
Right.
And then
hold on though.
Right. Also last week, Jeff Keighley.
Yep.
Jeff Keighley, the man behind the Game Awards, who has been part of the games industry for decades at this point, announced that he would not be producing the E3 Coliseum show this year, which he had partnered previously with ESA to produce. And it's where kind of very similar to Nintendo Treehouse at E3 in the past, where they would have developers on and first looks and gameplay and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Christian, who has been on the show before, worked on it last year with Keighley. So like, you know, it's obviously a part of both how we view what's happening at E3, and also like is an in for people to be like actively participating in producing stuff. And you know, this isn't to say that there will be no E3 Coliseum. It just means that whatever expertise Keighley was bringing to it is no longer being brought to it.
Right. I mean, from earlier press releases, it sounds like they want to bring in like influencers and streamers and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I just feel so like kind of lost as to what E3 is going to be this year.
I'll tell you what E3 will be this year, if nothing else, is a Nintendo Direct. And at this point in the year, all I want is a Nintendo Direct. So I want to bring it on.
Amazing. Yeah, for sure. Bloomberg reports that Nintendo is likely to suffer Switch supply shortages as soon as April in the US and Europe due to production slowdown caused by the coronavirus outbreak in China. Specifically, specifically they say that assembly for a lot of the consoles that are sold in the US or shipped to the US are actually they're assembled in Vietnam, but the components come from China, where obviously there's like a manufacturing slowdown right now. In Japan, the country is already beginning to be affected by the slowdown. I think that consoles for the Japanese market are manufactured directly in China. And so, yeah, it'll just be interesting to see the longer that the manufacturing slowdown is happening. Basically, like all manufacturing is on pause for the most part.
I think this is very interesting, and it's sort of coinciding with it is obviously coronavirus just on its own is an unfortunate thing to be happening. But the fact that it is coinciding with the like release of a new console generation at the end of this year, and like PlayStation has said that like they don't have a set price for the PlayStation 5 yet, sort of waiting to see like what they can get away with versus Microsoft's price point for the new Xbox. Part of the problem that they're having is that the availability for parts that they need are becoming more scarce, and so it is like actually becoming cost prohibitive or like availability prohibitive to make the quality or like the power of machines that they want. And I think that coupled with this sort of slowdown, like I think availability for there is a finite number of resources, both human and natural, in this world. And I think we might be starting to butt up against like the upper bound for that in a way that we've not seen before in like the games and technology industry. And that's I don't know. It's an interesting thing to consider, and I wonder, what we're going to see as like limiting factors on games and computers and all that sort of stuff in the next couple of years.
Well, and like not even to consider that, but because I think that's all I think that's an excellent point. But just like the global economy in general,
sure.
When you're like, so a lot of people in China, they are at home, right? They cannot work,
right?
And it's not like they are being paid for the time that they are not working. And so all of that, like buying power is gone. I don't know. It's just very. No,
that's a great point, especially when that is such a like emerging market for games right now, and where if Tencent is injecting all of this extra money into the into gaming spheres, but they're going to have less opportunity to sell stuff at home.
Well, and it's also not like as soon as hopefully very soon we will see the coronavirus, begin to step down from the peaks that we're seeing right now. But even after that happens and manufacturing starts up, it's not like people are immediately going to be able to spend, like there's so much catching up that has to be done because you are making money again. But what are you spending that on? It's not necessarily, like game consoles.
Plus, it took the Springler company or whatever it was over a year to find a place to remake these candy hearts, and then they still couldn't print on them.
Exactly.
So I mean, these are significantly more complicated machines than these sweet candy hearts.
Yeah, I just think it's like interesting because you're right. Like for a lot of us in the U.S., for the vast majority of us around the world, the coronavirus seems like a distant thing.
Yes,
that like you kind of like think about, but you. I don't know that I've ever really considered like the implications, the long-term implications of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think that coupled with the sort of anticipated, when we were going into the last console generation, right, going into the Xbox One and the PS4, I like the chatter around it was that like this is likely to be the last generation of home consoles, and then everything's gonna go to like PCs, or like everything's gonna become one. The market's not going to sustain all of these companies having their own separate boxes, and then the market not only supported it, but like the Xbox One even being like a relative failure, sold a ton, and the PlayStation 4 is like the second best selling home console ever, right behind the PlayStation 2. So like I think it is possible that we are on a little bit of like a bubble that I don't think that people are going to adopt new hardware at quite the same rate that they're expecting it to, and are maybe like I said, pushing up against the ceiling of what's possible, both in terms of human labor and in terms of like the actual resources, and will just run themselves out trying to meet a demand that might not even be there.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how it all like unfolds. In other news,
yes,
the Super Nintendo controllers,
yeah,
for the SNES Switch Online are available again. Possibly. I don't know. By the time this comes
momentarily, they are available.
They will not be available again. Mm-hmm. So
same story here, probably. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But it had been a while. They showed up weirdly in January for like a brief moment, and then were gone again. Nintendo said to check back in February. Here we are.
In February.
They are available again. I wondered if I should buy one, and I just like went ahead and did it.
Oh, good for you.
I
Mark.
decided to just pick up the one.
Yes.
I don't need like a bunch of them. They actually changed the way. So this is just for the like US store. They'd been available previously in Europe and Japan, I think, without much problem.
Yeah.
But in the US store, before there was like a 4 controller limit on each restock. Now it is a like 4 controller limit
lifetime
in totality.
Good.
But yeah, it's nice to see it available again. Weird that like the NES controllers were apparently just lousy with them. I don't know if they manufactured way more than they anticipated, or that like the parts for the SNES controller were just harder to source.
I don't know.
It's just kind of been weird.
It's all so weird. I would be interested in getting one of them, except I've already got the 2 SNES Classic controllers that came with it, plus like 2 regular Super Nintendo controller. Like, how many Super Nintendo controllers do I need in my house? I don't have that much space, Mark.
I know. And do you use the like? No. I've never used the NES controllers that came with the Switch. Not came with, but were made for Switch.
The ones that were made for
like the NES Switch Online NES controllers.
Oh, the NES ones.
Yeah.
I have, but not in a long time. I'd have to dig them out to use them. Which,
right.
Yeah.
But if you wanted them like me and you weren't able to get them before, they are now available. Maybe. Who knows by the time you're listening to this show whether they've sold out or not. Hopefully not. Also last week, Pokemon Home was just stealth released without much fanfare. It's available now on the Switch eShop and on mobile devices.
Do you intend to pick it up?
I don't think so. I don't really have Pokemon to transfer anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, don't you want to bring your Pikachu or your Eevee or whatever over from Let's Go?
Oh yeah, I guess I could.
Yeah,
and maybe just for the sake of this show, I should download it. And
there you go.
See what's going on.
See what it's like to bring your Bulbasaur over or whatever. What did you start in that?
Eevee.
Oh wait, do you also not get a starter?
No, that is
you just get the partner Pokemon.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then later, like throughout the mission, you have like the opportunity to earn the other starters.
Well, I don't like that at all.
I mean, isn't that how Pokemon Yellow worked? Is you just got Pikachu as your starter?
I think you also get a starter.
I think I
might be wrong.
A pop-up Nintendo Switch on the go experience. That's the official like capitalized title of it. Nintendo Switch : on the go has been announced for a few U.S. airports.
Hey,
it's basically just like a demo station set up in airports. And it'll include titles like Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario Party, Tetris 99, and more. That's right, Tetris 99, one of the heavy hitters. They know it for business travelers.
Oh, it's so good. Well, just hold on a second. It's weird to me that Super Mario Party is part of this, because you have to play it with Joy-Cons, and you basically can't play it by yourself.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
This is like putting 1-2 Switch in this lineup.
But maybe they'd want to show, right, like, because all of these you could show off on the handheld, but Super Mario Party is a great way to show off the Switch functionality, where it's like, and you put it on the TV and you remove the Joy-Con.
That's a good point.
And you play it that way with like your family or friends. So I think it shows off a different aspect of the Switch.
It just feels harder to control to me. Like the rest of them, you can do the thing where like the Pro controller is in like a little plastic thing, and you can't like walk away with it.
Right.
But like Super Mario Party needs to be like a free handheld single Joy-Con. They're gonna lose some Joy-Cons. People are gonna walk off with them.
Well, maybe there's an employee like standing there, like
one
an E3 demo.
One employee.
I mean, at like Best Buy, they have no employees.
Right, but I think those
They are. They're like
guess I don't
bolted
know
down.
what
No,
yes,
they
that's
are.
right.
For sure. You can't. They're not just like loose Joy-Cons. But I'm saying
Right.
one is probably enough.
Yeah,
it's like
that's
all the
true.
employee need to be watching that thing closely. It runs through March. So if you're traveling through Dulles International, Tacoma International, O'Hare International, or Dallas Love Field, I'm assuming that's also an international airport, but I don't know that for sure.
No, there's no way to know.
You can check out the Nintendo Switch on the go experience. I don't think we mentioned previously that the Netflix animated Castlevania series is back for its third season on March 5th.
Which is coming up. March 5th is very soon. And you can bet your bottom dollar that we have already booked Colin J. Morris to help us watch it.
Have we? Does he know that this is happening?
He knows. So I told him that it is here. So here's a little bit of a rub. It is 10 episodes, which makes it the longest season.
It's more than we've had in the first and second season combined.
Is that true? I thought
Yeah.
the first one was 4 and the second one was 8. Maybe it's 4 and 6.
Yeah.
The point is, I told Colin that like we won't do them all at one time.
No.
We'll do like half and half. And he said, "You realize I've never watched a full season of the show for NCS, right?" And I didn't respond to that. But so we'll have Colin back on at some point, and we'll talk about this.
Yes.
I think breaking it up into 2 episodes is probably
At least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably right.
We'll figure out some way to do it. And then finally, last week at the 2020 DICE Summit in Las Vegas, Disney Senior VP Games and Experiences, Sean Shoptaw, told the audience of developers that the company is looking to partner with game studios, quote, to empower them to do really unique things with our catalog.
Now, this is a thirsty move from Disney Games, right?
Yeah, I mean, like previously, Disney, the past 15 years has a history of kind of like getting into the games business really hard, where they're like acquiring studios, and trying to make a whole bunch of different games, not just licensed games, or not just games using their characters, but also just like racers from Avalanche and like all that type of stuff, and then having it not work out at all, going the other direction, getting out of games development, then kind of getting back into it with Disney Infinity and all this kind of stuff.
Right, and Disney Infinity, of course, is multiple things. It's I think they had 3 game studios that were all working on Disney Infinity, and of course it was a Toys to Life thing too. So they're also making and designing all of these toys and manufacturing them and selling them. So like, yeah, they definitely and it seems like it happens fast.
Yeah,
right?
they were like probably like every 5 years they were within this cycle of being like, okay, we're just gonna license our characters.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna like really get into the business of making games. Then we're gonna license our characters. We're gonna get back into the business of making games. Now they're on like a licensing characters cycle. The thing that's interesting is that in the most recent investors call, Bob Iger basically called out like, historically we are really bad at making games, like being in the games publishing business, and he is not interested in getting back into it. And so that leads into this talk at DICE Summit, where basically he's saying, hey, we have this enormous library of characters, made even more enormous now that we own like all the Fox characters.
Yeah, totally.
And so what we want to do,
that King of the Hill game.
Exactly. So what we want to do is we want to partner with game developers, game studios who have like an interesting or creative take on these characters, on these like worlds. He specifically called out Insomniac Games with Spider-Man for PlayStation, and then the more recent Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order from Respawn and EA as like examples of games that they want like to see more of in the future. And
also just for like the Nintendo audience specifically, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 was another game sort of made under this same sort of arrangement.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's a Ninja Theory game.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
For Nintendo.
Yes.
So the reason we're bringing this up directly is that on Thursday we're going to be doing just what they want and talking about creative games we'd like to see from a dream pairing of Nintendo characters with Nintendo first party
Disney
characters with Nintendo first party developers.
So that should be a fun time. I've got some good ideas that have alternates to them, though, where I'm like, this can also be this kind of game. So and I'm very excited to hear what you've come up with. I think that'll be a good episode.
Yeah, I think so too. So come back on Thursday to check that out.
But in the meantime, let's get out of the news. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate and review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
We're just one review away from hitting 100
and only
on
100
Apple Podcasts.
And only 101 away from getting to 200.
Exactly. And you can help us. Also, you can get a signed copy of Patrick's Transformer comic.
Yes, and you should do that. And then follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MK Mitchell, and the show is at NinCart Society. There's also a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.
Have you ever encountered an unexplained hairy bipedal hominid in the woods?
Have you received telepathic messages from an unidentified aerial phenomenon?
If so, then you need to listen to Bigfoot Collectors Club. I'm Michael McMillan.
And I'm Bryce Johnson.
And together with super producer
Riley Bray,
we make up the Bigfoot Collectors Club.
That's right. Every week we talk to actors, comedians, writers, and paranormal experts about their personal paranormal histories and share stories of high strangeness.
Like the time when we talked to Craig Ferguson about the Loch Ness Monster and when a sea witch told him he had raven magic.
Or the time I asked Pitch Perfect's Anna Camp her opinion on cattle mutilations. Past guests have included Rachel Bloom, Jen Kirkman, Paul F. Tompkins, Bobcat Goldthwait, and more.
So if you've ever been abducted alongside 5 reindeer by an alien with drills for hands or witnessed Bigfoot crawl out of an interdimensional portal,
don't laugh, happens all the time.
Then check out Bigfoot Collectors Club on Campfire Media or wherever you get your podcasts.
Bigfoot Collectors Club. You're here to believe us.
Wait, is that how it goes?
Campfire.